Hello everyone, welcome back to the SBK betting podcast, joined as always by Tom Collins in the SBK studio and Ross Millar all the way over in France. Still sunning yourself, it looks like, Ross, while we watch this rain fall. We're really getting to nearly the end of October, which means the jump season, but it also means one of our final Group 1s of the season on the flat. And although the turf season concluded in what was all I could call a bit of a bubble burst on Saturday, there's still a little bit of flat racing that we're going to get our teeth into, but we must talk about the weekend that was, as a big well done to Tom Collins. Firstly, Trushan in the long distance cup, which I personally believe was the race of the day. Brilliant spectacle, two really game horses trying their way all the way to the line, and a fair effort by Coltrane, but Trushan won his third long distance cup in 3 consecutive years. And Bay Bridge, 19-1 he was. And I don't have my piece of humble pie, but I bet many slices this week, because this horse, Baid, was unbeatable in my opinion, but he was beaten and fair and square, not just by one horse, but 3 horses ahead of him. Tom, what were your first initial thoughts when you saw, first of all, your selection go past the line, but also Baid beaten?
Well, I mean, firstly, I have to say I was on my way to Sky Sports Studios at the time of the race. A terrible timing that I had to travel. But I pulled over into the M3 services to watch this race. However, I missed the first portion. So I didn't get to see the first 3 quarters. I literally turned on the stream as they turned for home. And Bay Bridge was in the perfect position. But Jim Crowley moved out wide, and Baid had every chance. And I was thinking, okay, it's just going to go by. This is going to be like we saw in the Jumpman International, where he just zoomed clear in the closing stages and put lengths between himself and Bay Bridge. I was thinking the place money is absolutely assured here. But it turns out Bay Bridge won. Now, I think Baid massively underperformed. I haven't actually seen his RPR, but I'm going to find it right now. 121. So, yeah, he ran, 12, 13 pounds below his best on that evidence. They blame the ground. I don't necessarily think that is a big issue. Look, he's won on good to soft before. Now, I know the jockeys were saying it was softer than the going description, and I believe it was as well, because there was so much rain beforehand. But the horse had every chance of winning. He travelled lovely, and he just didn't have that same burst that we usually see from Baid. It would have been great to see him go out on a high, but at the same time, he ran in the race, he ran his race, and he just wasn't good enough. So I don't think it diminishes his career at all. Talk about Bay Bridge, though. This horse is very good. We shouldn't sleep on him moving forward either. I think he's going to dominate this division. I thought Richard Kingscote gave him an excellent ride. I thought he was in the perfect position throughout. He gave the horse every chance of winning. If Baid zoomed past, then you know what? He would have still given him a good ride to finish second. But yeah, he went down on his sword. He was very strong in front. And Richard Kingscote was hands and heels in the final 100 yards as well. So I think he won a shade cosily.
Yeah, what a way to close off his season after the Derby success. Let's hope he stays in training. I don't think Bally Lynch have confirmed or denied, and he might even go to the Breeders' Cup yet. It was a strange day, really, wasn't it? We had some real upsets. We saw Inspiral fall out the stalls. We saw Bayside Boy, a winner of the QE2 at 33-1. We saw a 80-1 winner of the last, I think it was as well. Ross, you must have been delighted to see Emily Upjohn show her true colours, winning the fillies and mares at 9-2, and Adia also putting up a brave fight and placed at 5-1. With what Tom has said and everything in mind, do you think, first of all, from a Baid perspective, that we mustn't box off his career on this one heavy defeat, and we should always think about what he has achieved, or does it just put a bit of a dampener on what was a wonderful career?
No, I don't think it does at all. I think I was actually talking to an Australian friend of mine who's just getting into racing, and he's asking about Michael Stout and the knock that Bay Bridge had and all this sort of stuff, and he said it looked like he just pulled out and there was nothing there, and I think he's absolutely right. The horse just couldn't pick up on the soft ground. So I told him to go back and watch the Judmont and said, look, that's how this horse can really quicken. So you mustn't knock what he achieved, whether he was just a bit under the weather on the day, didn't quite run to his level. Soft ground didn't help. I think the stiff track didn't suit him. And he perhaps didn't get the ideal draw as the race panned out, but he's still been a brilliant horse for 2 seasons. And anyone that crabs him is wrong, in my opinion. I think he's been a super horse. What it does do, though, is make you realise how brilliant Frankel was, because he did it on all grounds. I don't prescribe to this great horses can go on all ground, because they can't. but Frankel really could. So to beat soft ground horse on soft ground and quick ground horse on quick ground over a mile, he really was something else. And it perhaps highlights how good he was. But no, Baid's been the best horse since Frankel for certain. And one poor run shouldn't diminish his reputation in any way, shape, or form.
Yeah, that great horses go on every line comment is something that I have been using, and even myself, I have to rethink the words that you say. You just like to hope they do, but I think it can be a poor line to use. And as you say, we have been gifted by and spoiled by these horses in the past, and we want them to be replicated, but it is awfully hard. Anyway, that was Baid. It was a good weekend, bar. Obviously the main disappointment. I think everyone in the sport wanted him to win. I was pleased to see Jadumi placed in the QB2 at 92. I think that's a horse going forward that we can keep tabs on. He's a gelding as well, so he'll be keeping going throughout the next season at least, and one to keep an eye on. But that was British Champions Day. We're going to look ahead now to the Vertem Futurity Stakes. We do, I know, have good quality jumps action, and we will, I'm sure, be looking at some of the key selections from Cheltenham this weekend. So hold on tight, Ross. But we should give this race special mention because of all the Group 1 2-year-old races that we've seen over the years, this is the one that feeds really, really well directly into the classics for next season. You only need to look back at the Futurity record. Saxon Warrior, Magna Grecia, Camico, McSwinney all have gone and won classics the next year. And even Luxembourg, perhaps a shade unlucky not to have even attempted the Derby this year, but for a knockback. And we do have a lineup that quite rightly should have the kind of quality that you look for in a Futurity. And Auguste Rodin for Brian Moore and Aidan O'Brien, the son of Deep Impact, has really been taking the eye, especially in his last win at Leopardstown. He's currently 5 to 6. He's short price, but he's already a short price for the Derby itself. Around about 10 to 1. Epictetus for Frankie Dettori and John Daly Goldston 8 is 9 to 2. Holloway Boy on a bit of a recovery mission is 8 to 1. Stormbuster for Andrew Balding is 9 to 1. Then King of Steel 12, Salt Lake City 16s, Dancing Magic's 28 to 1, and Captain Vizerba is 40 to 1. So a nice enough field. We've got some interesting contenders. Captain Vizerba, the horse that was unlucky to be involved in a bit of a dramatic race last time out, where Ross Orion had was found on the floor after the push by Christos Soumillon, so we don't really know what to make of him. We do, Ross, know what to make of Auguste Rodin because he's been very good. Should he be as short as he is?
Yeah, I think he probably does deserve to be favourite. I think he's looked very impressive. And you just have to respect, Aidan O'Brien when he sends these colts over. They've got such a depth to choose from. If he's the nominated Ryan Moore ride, that automatically needs to pique your interest. But on the bare face of it, he beat Caroline Street a length and a half. Caroline Street's 103 rated and was beaten into 6th in a Group 3 since. Alder, who was back in third 2 lengths away, is 104 horses. So he hasn't beaten a field of this quality yet, but he's looked very impressive in anything he does. Aidan O'Brien is sort of quoted as saying that better ground is going to suit him. There's plenty of rain around. I don't think it's going to ride the soft side of soft, but if it gets soft, I don't think that helps him. I don't think it necessarily inhibits him because he's proven he can go on it. But at a short price at this time of the year, all these 2-year-olds, whether they've had a busy racing season, they're going to have been in work for a fair stint of time. The weather's changing. You can just get some odd results. So it just puts me off backing a juvenile at a short price, let alone in this race. I think Epictetus and Holloway Boy have got to step up. They were well beaten in the Group 3 last time. I fancy Holloway Boy to reverse the form. I don't think he got a great ride last time. He sort of got caught on heels and had to wait a little bit, and the race developed away from him, and he stayed on quite well, but he never really looked like he was gonna win that. So I don't see an angle in for him. Stormbuster was really impressive last time at Newbury, having been beaten previously, but the horse he beat last time, High Bank, was a Kingman horse who I really liked, but he's been disappointing again since. So I think you've got to take that form with a pinch of salt. Then you come on to the giant King of Steel. who won at Nottingham last week. I mean, he's absolutely humongous. He did it very nicely on soft ground at Nottingham. He sort of just lobbed around and just galloped them into submission. If the ground goes soft, that's going to help him. But I just worry that it's only 8 days ago and he's a big horse. I worry that with these bigger ones, they can just take a little bit longer to get over their first run. So the one I've come down to, a decent price, is Salt Lake City. And I think he's just been priced up on one poor run in the Convivial Maiden at York when he bombed out quite badly. But his debut run, he was second to Al Riffa, beaten about a length and a half. Al Riffa already had race experience and has since gone on to win the Group 1 Vince O'Brien Stakes in good fashion. And Salt Lake City then ran poorly at York. He's come back and won by 5 lengths since. He's got a nice pedigree. I just thought he's overpriced because they've factored in, I think, too strongly one poor run at York. Now, maybe that's as good as he is. Maybe he didn't travel well, in which case coming over to Doncaster isn't going to help him this time. But I'm always prepared to forgive one poor run. He's shown a decent level of form either side of that. And I just thought in a race where I think Auguste Rodin is the obvious winner of the race, but he's a short enough price, I thought Salt Lake City was a bit of value against him.
Yeah, it's obviously difficult to know what he beat coming out of a maiden, but he did it in a manner of a horse that really relished the step up and trip as well, didn't he, Salt Lake City? And it is all about, the mile and as you say, the ground, whether that will test their stamina even further. King of Steel is the kind of fly in the ointment, isn't he? Because he really could be anything. But as you say, a big horse like that. Adam Kirby said, biggest 2-year-old he's ever sat on, which is a huge words from a man who has a lot of responsibility with the Godolphin horses. Did you hear that quote?
Yes, I heard afterwards that he said he was 18 hands. Now, it's not often Adam Kirby looks like a flat jockey on a horse because he's a tall lad. If he's 18 hands, I'd be surprised. I sort of joke that my mate Dave is always saying he's catching 50-pound carp, and I think they're probably more like 35, 40-pound carp, and I should think King of Steel is more like 17 hands. It's still massive for a 2-year-old, but I think 18 hand is probably stretching it.
Yeah, whether it might be stretching it, bouncing it back after 8 days is the more important point. A really interesting analysis there from Ross, especially with sort of just trying to find a bit more value, which we always like to do in a race like this where we've got such a short price favourite. But Tom, looking through this, this is a Group 1, and looking for horses that are at Group 1 level. You've got horses coming out of Group 3s, maidens like Salt Lake City, Epictetus off the back of a good second last time in a Group 3. I know you like that horse a lot going into that race. But is there anything that is Group 1 level? Because Auguste Rodin showed he definitely is capable of it when he took a Group 2 last time.
Yeah, well, I'm glad that Ross went first, actually, with his analysis, because when I was looking through this race, I love the Vertem Futurity, I love the flat season, I'm glad there's still another Group 1 to go, but I was just lacking inspiration for a punting perspective. It's really hard to make a strong case for a horse in here being a Group 1 horse, Group 1 calibre, ready for the Guineas and the Derby next year, other than the favourite. I was looking through the whole list, and okay, I don't think necessarily the 3 outsiders have got a chance. Salt Lake City's interesting if he improves, but on what he's shown today, I can't have him. King of Steel's a maiden winner. Who knows? I don't want to take the chance at 12-1. Stormbuster won a conditions race last time that is basically, it usually features very good horses, but they tend to be 1.5 mile horses, the likes of your Beer, etc. So I think Stormbuster's kind of, Andrew Baldwin's looked at this race and gone, well, it's not the best. Why don't we just chuck him in for a final season closer, Group 1, give him a go, see how good he is. So I can't have him. On that basis, Holloway Boy has been disappointing since the Chesham, and a first-time visor is a big question mark, I would say. He travelled really well last time out, but just didn't fire. And Epictetus, I thought he should have won that race at Newmarket, and he didn't, despite being 3 off the rail, which obviously wasn't ideal. But I thought he came there to win, and he just couldn't beat the Godolphin horse. So, I was just really struggling for inspiration. I think if there is a Group 1 horse, it's definitely Auguste Rodin, who's the top of the market and probably deserves to be odds on based on his Leopardstown win. He's got proven form on soft ground. I know Ross said that maybe Aidan doesn't want soft ground for him, but, he can go through it, unlike Baid, supposedly. And he's kind of followed the same route as Mogul back in 2019. Mogul won that race at Leopardstown, that Group 2, before going on to the Vertem Futurity, albeit that was at Newcastle back in 2019 when Kamiko won. that edition back in 2019 was so far superior to this. And if they think Auguste Rodin is capable of doing what Mogul can do, he should win this race.
Okay, yeah, it's. I suppose the one element that's lacking is a Godolphin runner, isn't it? Because if we had a Godolphin runner, then we'd probably have a slightly higher quality. And I was expecting, I don't know about you, to see potentially Silverknot try and back up his win in the Autumn Stakes last time, or any of them. They've got so many options, so that leaves it slightly weaker field, because they've just had such a big stranglehold over this division, and you only need to see the results yesterday at Newmarket to prove that.
Yeah, well, they didn't have any runner in this race last year either, which was slightly surprising. The year before, they ran one ruler who finished second. Maybe it's just not Charlie Appleby's favourite spot for his juveniles, probably because it tends to be good to soft ground in the autumn at Doncaster. Yeah, I think Godolphin have such a stranglehold. They don't want to run any of the horses, so we're kind of left with the B team. I mean, if you are looking for value, you can find it. I mean, Epictetus is 9-2 with us right now. He'll probably go off around 3-1. He's never going to be that big because he will be second favourite in this race. So he's probably value. You got value with bigger priced horses as well. Salt Lake City might be shorter because he could be the pace angle. But for the most likely winner, Auguste Rodin is the one.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I agree with you there. And I think that the value is what I'm looking for as well, just because there's probably horses that we don't really know. We haven't got to the bottom. We don't really know what they are yet that could get there in the placings. And I just thought that King of Steel at 12-1 could be that. Yes, as Ross has quite rightly commented on, this is a very quick turnaround. Ammo Racing definitely looking to get as much Group 1 success. I haven't got it yet, so this looks like one of their better 2-year-olds. So they're going to just go in and try and make hay while the sun shines with this horse that's clearly come out of his race really well. He got a Derby quote at 20-1 when he won his race at Nottingham just only a few weeks ago, 8 days ago to say. And he just looked like he was smart and professional. Whether this comes too soon for him, that's a bit of a risk, but it's a risk worth taking at 12-1 for me. So King of Steel, and possibly not the highest quality renewals of the Vertem Futurity, but likely if we do see a good winner, we'll see something to keep our eyes on for next season into the classic year, which we'll have to put to bed for a bit because we're getting into the jump season, and that's probably where we're going to go to next. But we're going to put to one side our feature race. As I said, Auguste Rodin, the kind of obvious selection, but that will be Tom's final selection at 5-6. Salt Lake City at 16-1, and for me, King of Steel at an each way price 12-1 as well. So Vertem Futurity over. Let's look at the bet of the week, because Ross, first of all, pleasing to see that we've got good quality field sizes, at least for Cheltenham, considering that Wincanton is off again on Sunday. We have got tiny race fields all over the country. Cheltenham have obviously done a very good job at keeping the track to what they want for their opening day, but possibly they are helped by the fact that we've got an onslaught of Irish runners as well.
Yeah, please, can it rain? If nothing else, it's going to stop my Twitter timeline being filled full of Cheltenham Festival ante-post tips and chat. It's months off. There's so many good races. And I was talking to TC, actually, I think it was a couple of weeks ago before the start of one of the pods, and he was just saying, oh, Flat's ending, and I was excited. And he made a very good point that we don't make enough of the racing before the Cheltenham Festival. Everything gets geared around it. So for pity's sake, let's stop and let's focus on the Tingle Creek and the Welsh National and all these great races, the Badgerales Chase, coming up. Some really great handicap chases and hurdles. Let's give each race and each week its merit, and then we can build up to Cheltenham nearer the time.
Yeah, well said. Unfortunately, I don't think it's going to completely outdo your Twitter feed, but we can only try, and at least we can enjoy the racing for what it is. And I do think, even though it is our opening weekend at Cheltenham, there will be trainers that have got their horses spot on, because there's nothing better than a Cheltenham winner getting your horse up that hill, leading it back into the winner's enclosure. So even though I personally find it difficult to not narrow down horses that necessarily, could be spot on or, absolute certainties are mine, Ross, I feel like you might have something that you have found as your bet of the week at Cheltenham this weekend.
No, Chelmsford for the bet of the week, Jess. No, Cheltenham. Yeah, Cheltenham for the bet of the week. The 315 looks like a decent little handicap chase. The market's headed by Clear the Runway, who's been an absolute star for Laura Morgan. Advertised her training talents really well. Started its winning sequence off 98 and now runs off 142. But he's up another £7. He's been winning round summer tracks, Market Raise and Worcester, Southall. I think this is a slightly different kettle of fish. And he comes up against Editor Dujit, who runs off 153, which is a high enough mark. But he was fourth in the Grand Annual, which is a significantly tougher grade than this. And in that Grand Annual, it was run on very soft ground. He only weakened the last 100 yards into fourth. I think he'll be ready for this because I don't quite know where they go with him. Other than this, to be honest, I think he's probably not quite good enough for the top table, and he's going to be very tough to place off this mark. I expect him to be ready. Gary Moore is very much a trainer that takes it week by week. I think he'll cause Clear the Runway a few problems. Should mention Dad's lad from the Willie Mullins yard, who's been pretty impressive, but I just think Editor Jeet's jumping from the front can cause him a problem. And I thought he's around about 4-1 in some of the markets I've seen. I think he's a great bet at that sort of price. I think he'll go well and get Cheltenham off to a good start.
Yeah, he's a bit of a Cheltenham specialist, hasn't he become? He loves it around there. Clearly just didn't stay at Aintree as well, so back to his optimum trip. Editor de Geet for the Gary Moore team, 12 stone on his back. Plenty of weight, but sometimes it can carry you around. We see so many horses just excelling there, and it was wonderful to see Cool Cody confirmed to be running this weekend, another Cheltenham specialist. So it's going to be a great weekend of action there. Tom, we've obviously got good flat action as well throughout the course of the weekend. Have you peeled your eyes away from the flat action, or are you looking at that over the jumps?
Yeah, it's going to be the jumps for the nap. Back to the flat action for the place play, which is actually my strongest fancy of the week, the place play, coming up soon. But there are reasons why it's the place play. Anyway, to the jumps, 240 at Cheltenham. The nap is going to be Pied Piper. This is a match between Night Salute and Pied Piper, the two horses that went hammer and tongs in the Grade 1 4-year-old juvenile hurdle at Aintree back in April. Pied Piper won that race, but was subsequently demoted to second after causing interference to Milton Harris's runner. I think Pied Piper's a better horse. I think Night Salute was more precocious. Coming off the flat last year, he was very good. But Pied Piper ran at Royal Ascot. He had a little pipe opener ready for this year. He was far too keen that day, but still ran really good in the Ascot Stakes. I think they're gearing him up for Down Royal in a couple of weeks, and he'll be around 85-90%. And for me, that should be good enough for Pied Piper, especially given his form at Cheltenham. He ran a good third in Supreme. He's a very talented horse. I think it was a Triumph, wasn't it? Very talented horse, but he's going to be a short price. But I think he deserves to be a short price. Pied Piper in the 240 at Cheltenham.
Yeah, I don't want to get any shorter than 11 to 10. I'd imagine, and that's probably the same for me for my selection, which is even money, which is Aesop's Fables in the Doncaster Stakes listed race. Obviously, jumping on the lorry with Auguste Rodin over for Aidan O'Brien, and I just think he's a good thing because he's back in trip, back to the 6 furlongs. I don't think he's necessarily shown himself to be an out-and-out 7 furlong horse, and that was proved in the Dewhurst Stakes last time. This is more his game, son of No Nay Never. I think he should be too good for this Doncaster Stakes, which again, a bit like Futurity, doesn't have a standout horse in there. And with an official rating of 111, he is £5 clear of all his rivals. So I think he's a good thing as well. So that's our nap selections, our bet of the week for this weekend. Place plays, I think we need to come for Tom because I'm quite excited by what he's found.
Yeah, so the race is the 120 at Doncaster, and the reason why this horse is going to be the place play is because it's an 18-runner handicap on likely soft ground at Doncaster, featuring a load of horses that could bounce back and win this race and surprise a couple of informed horses, but that's it. So there are reasons why maybe something could shock the selection, and the selection is Masters Zoffany. I think you're going to get a very good price about Richard Fahey's runner as well, which is why I'm very confident that he's probably the best bet of the week for a value perspective. He's only had 13 races in his career. He's a 4-year-old. He's won 3 of them, 2 of which came on good to soft ground. He relishes deep conditions. This year, Richard Fahey's obviously found it's super difficult to find a place for Masters Zoffany. He's only had 3 starts. One of those came on good to firm ground, which he hates. And clearly they just had to get him out to give him a run. He was far too buzzy in that race itself. Last time out at York, I thought he ran very well for a mid-division finish. That day he was keen. He wasn't in the best position. And I don't think York really suits him either, but he still ran very well. His previous form at Chester is really good as well. Last year, Master Zoffany, I thought he was going to become a 100 horse. Now he's not become that. I think he's running here off a mark of 85, which is just £1 higher than when he was last successful. But he's got more ability than his handicap rating suggests. You generally want low draws at Doncaster in big field handicaps because they move across to the stand side rail, they congregate there, and if you're drawn high, you get squeezed out or you suffer trouble in running. Whereas those who are drawn low, which is towards the far side, they move across and then end up racing down the middle of the track and get a clear run. So I think his draw is absolutely perfect in stall 4. He's back to his ideal trip of 7 furlongs as well. Richard Farr, he's been campaigning him over 7.5, a mile, but now he's back to 7 furlongs. He doesn't stay a mile. And I just think he is the horse in this race that has the capability of stepping forward. I think this is his D-Day. Master Zoffany's D-Day is coming at Doncaster, and I think he's a great place play in the 120.
Well, that is comprehensive if you ever need one. I was going to ask quickly about the draw in 4 because you are the draw man. Is that are you happy? Are you happy with 4 in such a big field?
Yeah, very happy. He's a horse that just tracks the leaders. He races prominently or mid-div. I think stall 4 will be perfect. He'll get good cover from that position, good toe into the race. And as I say, you don't want to be drawn high. That's the worst kind of draw. Drawn low at Doncaster in sprint handicaps is where you want to be. Okay,
right. Master Zoffany. You've heard it here first. Right, Ross. A place play to match the confidence of Tom, please.
Yeah, how do you follow that? Passion, logic, the lot. This place play really is a place play because this horse just does not win. He's very talented, though, I think. Did they leave you out too? Runs in the 350 at Cheltenham. He ran a really good race 2 weeks ago at Chepstow in the Silver Trophy. Finished just 3 lengths behind Nappers Hill. Came from a long way back over a trip of 2.5 miles, be some way short of his best. But I liked how he jumped on that occasion. He can be a bit of a scratchy jumper. He jumped much better, I thought. He's now running off 131, having been placed in a similar race of 134 at Haydock last year. I think he's a good thing to hit the frame. I mean, he could have his day in the sun, I suppose, but a place play, I think he's a great shot to hit the frame in a competitive handicap hurdle.
Okay, 14-1 for Did They Leave You Out Too? I'm actually going to take you on in the same race with the horse Kansas City Chief, who returns to the scene of plenty of those fabulous victories with his old pal Victoria Malzard on board. Now with Oliver Sherwood, had a bit of a pipe opener at Wetherby not long ago. I think it was last week or so. And I think that's fine. Don't need to read too much into it. And now comes back to Cheltenham and obviously scaled some heights but over and above I think they ever had imagined last season and got to an official rating of 136 when he went to the per tenths and just bombed out really. He's now back down to a mark of 131, which is only £2 higher than his good second at Cheltenham the last time he ran on New Year's Day, which was a great performance. And if he can repeat anything like that, then I think he's a solid each way bet. And 22-1 is there for you to take as well. So that's 2 runners for you there at Cheltenham at what do we say it was, the 350, and what is 2 days of really good action. But yeah, I think everyone would like a little bit more rain, certainly just to help matters. But that's Cheltenham, and that's a look at our place play and our bet of the week. And now it leaves me for the stat attack. Tom, you'll have to remind us how the stat attack played last week ahead of this one.
Yeah, last week was just based on Champions Day and saying don't look away from the favourites in races where you don't need to because favourites of Champions Day have been striking at 33%. Well, there were 3 winning favourites from 7 races, which, if my maths serves me correct, is 43%. So it was kind of a 6 races, sorry. Oh, I mean, even better. That's 50% then. So, yeah, the stat attack, I'm claiming that as a win, Jess. Hopefully this week will be the same. Now, this is focused on jumps racing. I was trying to look away from the 2 main meetings at Cheltenham and at Doncaster, and I looked at Kelso. Emma Lavelle has been training for 25 years. I hope she doesn't mind me saying that. For 25 years. And she's only ever had 1 runner at Kelso. That horse was unsuccessful. But the fact that horse, they've only sent 1 horse up there, suggests that, it's not at the forefront of their attention. On Saturday, she will send up 3 horses to Kelso from her base at Ogbourne Maisie. Now, I had to search where Ogbourne Maisie was, and it's in Wiltshire. The trip from her base to Kelso is 6.5 hours. So the whole round trip is 13 hours. You wouldn't be sending 3 horses up there if you didn't think you were going to win a race or 2. Her 3 runners are Captain Broomfield, who runs in the maiden hurdle at 140, Darasha Counter, who goes in the feature Edinburgh Gin Chase at 248, and Point Him Out in the handicap chase at 4 o'clock. I think Emma Lavelle will at least get one on the board at Kelso on Saturday.
Really intriguing insight there for Emma Lavelle. Can't believe she's been training for 25 years. And Ogbourne Maisie is just by Manton. It's a beautiful spot. She's a really lovely spot where she trains. Okay, that's it. That's our stat attack. That's our place play. That's our bet of the week, and that's a good look at the Vertem Futurity for you this weekend. A reminder that new SBK customers can get £30 in free bets by betting £10. T's and C's always apply. And of course, thank you to everyone that's been listening. Subscribers are going up, and hopefully we're giving you a lot more winners than ever as we head into the jump season. Listen on the YouTube channel as well, and also lots of SBK ambassador content, and a big plug to the interview with Sean Levy that came out last week, because it was great. A great watch as well, a fabulous listen, and a great guy. So don't forget to listen to that, and we will be back again next week.